There goes my, oh, hello. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to Write with Carla's Writing Corner. There are mistakes that you may be making as a writer that peg you as an amateur. Today, I'm going to talk about how you can avoid those.
Do not attempt to adjust your dial. I'm transmitting live with the hardcore style.
Hello, Writer Boos. It's me, Write with Carla, and I am here with a nice little writing video. I'm sure you'll get a lot of information out of today, but first, let me tell you who I am. I am a mother, editor, author, ghostwriter, author coach. I have written about everything from real estate to motivation to scriptures to romance. But if you have an idea that you want to take from your head and put it into your hand, click on this link and join me for Uncorked, a wine and writing experience coming up. You don't want to miss it. It is going to be filled with information, and we will be doing just that. Taking your book from a book in your hand, an idea in your head, to a book in your hand, So you'll be joining me and a few other aspiring authors in a very intimate setting over brunch and wine. We'll talk about all aspects of the book writing and self-publishing process and my effort to help you have your literary voices be heard. Now we're going to talk about mistakes that amateur writers make. So this is not an exhaustive list. There are just 10 things that really jump out to me as mistakes when I am reading client work, if I'm doing an edit for a client who is a novice writer. These are a few things that jump out at me. 1, spelling changes. So let's say you're spelling something uniquely. For instance, in Mask Off, one of my main characters, her name is London, and I spell it Londyn, not DON. A mistake that novice writers make is interchanging the spelling. So they might spell it YN some of the way, they might spell it ON some of the way. They may even throw in a EN every now and then. You can't do that. It shows that you're not being consistent, nor did you care enough to correct those mistakes in the edit. And you probably didn't pay a professional editor to do it because a professional editor would have caught it. So don't peg yourself as an amateur writer by making spelling mistakes. Number 2, similar names. This has got to be a pet peeve of mine. If Matthew, Marcia, Marty, and Michaela walk into a club, it's going to be really hard to keep those characters from being confused. 1, you don't want to introduce that many characters at once, but you also don't want to have names that are so similar that when they come back up later on in the book, it's hard to keep them apart. Like Mark and Matthew, the names are really similar, and then you want to throw in a Marty, like, okay, Matthew, Mark, Marty, Matthew, Mark, like it's really confusing. So don't confuse your writer. All characters don't even need names, to be completely honest. If we only see them once or twice, we don't need their name. We really don't need a description unless it contributes to the story. Number 3, not knowing enough or not doing your research. So when I wrote Mask Off, my main character, Sergeant Knight, is a firefighter. I don't know anything about firefighting. I've never been to the fire academy, and I had to do my research. So I actually called the county where I live. I called the fire department and said, hey, I'm writing a book about a firefighter. It's a romance novel, but I still need some intel on firefighting. Will you help me? They were more than happy to welcome me into the fold. I visited 3 firehouses. They gave me tours. I was able to walk through, see how they were living, see the layouts. They gave me a full tour of a fire truck. They pulled out tools and told me what they were used for. They gave me a few stories. So as you're reading the book, you'll hear stories where Sergeant Knight is like in the field doing work. Those are real stories from real firefighters. I even took my son on one of the trips because it was after he got out of school. So Do your research, know the locations that you're talking about, what the streets look like, what the buildings look like. You know, New Orleans has those very, very characteristic old plantation style homes. If your book takes place in the South and you have a full 90,000 words and I don't hear the word ma'am not one time, I'm going to be like, who wrote this? This is crap. Because I know how we talk down here. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Southern hospitality is a real thing. So do your research, know the area, know the colloquialisms. If you're talking about a specific industry, specific job, know a few of the ins and outs, know the jargon so that people who live that life that you're writing about will be able to accept it as real because it feels real and it feels familiar to them. 4, boring dialogue. Example. Hey, Carla. Hi, Felicia. How are you doing today, Carla? Doing well, Felicia. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while either. Well, I am not going to hold you long because I have to go and pick up my child from the bus stop. Okay, well, I really appreciated you stopping to say hello to me. It's been nice. I'll see you later. Who talks like that? Number 1, it's very boring. Number 2, I didn't use a single contraction. See, didn't instead of did not. Didn't use a single contraction. And 3, I repeatedly used the words, the characters' names. And 4, that conversation did not move the story along. X the boring dialogue. I know you want to get to this word count or this page count, but believe me, boring dialogue is not where it's at. Why? Because people will put the book down and they will never ever buy another book from you. So make sure the dialogue moves the story along and make it be realistic. Put yourself in that situation. What would you say, or what would one of your friends say if they were the main characters? And then pump it out. Number 5, forgetting sensory descriptions is like a sin. So you have to think, as you're writing, you can see this world in your head. You can see these characters in your head. Sights, sounds, tastes, feels, that's what we need. We need the senses, and I know I left one out, taste. I left one out. But you want to use the senses to describe. Now, we don't need full descriptions of everything, but don't always leave them out. If you're talking about Mama's apple pie, don't just say Mama baked an apple pie and put it on the table and I wanted some. Say Mom's enchanting apple pie filled the house with warm cinnamon apple smell, and I was so tempted to just reach in and devour a nice piece of the soft flaky crust. See, that sounds a lot better, right? So just think about what it is you're describing and describe it enough so that your readers can put themselves there, but don't over describe it to the point where they are completely bored versus being tantalized. All right, now way number 6 that proves you are an amateur author is by not varying your sentence length. I am a writer. Yes, I am. I write often. This is what I do. Varying your sentence length will also keep your writers from being bored. So you don't want to write super, super long sentences that require 2 or 3 commas, semicolons, and you don't want short 3 to 5 word sentences. Vary it as you go in conversation as well as just in writing. Way number 7. Going back and forth between the past and the present. When you switch between the past and the present point of view, it's confusing, and it shows, 1, you didn't catch it in your edit, which means that you probably are an amateur. 2, you didn't pay a professional editor because, again, they would have caught it. So be very, very careful. Decide which way you want to tell the story and just blast it out. Now, if you're writing in present tense and you're talking about a flashback, then you can make that apparent in the writing. But I personally feel when you're writing a story, the story's already happened, you're just telling it. So past tense is a very, very safe place to be. It keeps it from being tricky when you're writing also. Number 8, pausing the story to introduce new characters. Every single time you introduce a new character, we don't need a whole paragraph description of what they look like. We don't need another paragraph about how they grew up. We don't need another paragraph about their personality. Sum it up. Give us 3 or 4 hints. 3 or 4 points, unless they are a main character. If they are a main character, go ahead and take that pause to introduce them. But again, you don't want to overdo it. You can show and not tell. Don't tell me Sergeant Knight is quick to anger. Show me Sergeant Knight is quick to anger. That gives you more words, and it helps with your character building down the road. They may not remember you saying he's quick to anger, but they'll remember him having an interaction with the coworker and banging his fist on the desk in anger and shoving some papers off that. They'll remember that, but they won't necessarily remember what you said. So you don't have to pause the story to give us a full introduction of every character. It's just not necessary. Number 9, being too descriptive. I think I talked about this in another video, but being too descriptive. So there are descriptions that we need, as I said, the 5 senses, but you don't have to give me like 5 descriptive words. I don't need warm, flaky, cinnamony, gooey, warm, flaky, cinnamony, gooey, yummy apple pie. It's just, you see, I couldn't even come up with the 5th one. It's like, oh my gosh, why are you still talking? Why are you still describing this pie? It's just a pie. It's warm and gooey. It's sweet and flaky. It is grandma's old recipe. Give us a description enough to tantalize, enough to tease, enough to make us feel like we're there, but don't overdo it to the point where we're like, oh my gosh, what are we talking about? Let's move on. Don't make that amateur mistake. And number 10, overuse of thesaurus words. You don't have to look up a synonym for every single word you come across. It doesn't make you look more professional. It doesn't make you sound more smart. Every now and then you can look up a thesaurus word because you don't want to use the word good 15 times in the same sentence. That's a boring and an absolute no-no amateur mistake. So use your thesaurus wisely. Merriam-Webster.com is free. Don't hesitate, but also don't force it. You don't have to use a synonym every single time you use that word. All right? If you have any questions for me, shoot me a DM, or if you're ready to hop in line at my author coaching experience where I hold you accountable for writing your book, shoot me an email at Carla at writewithcarla.com. We'll get you situated. We'll have a nice consultation to talk about your book writing vision, and we'll take it from there. All right, I hope to hear from you guys soon. Happy writing.